Howdy, everybody. I'm Thomas Blair.
And I am Mark Halash.
And this is Patch Notes from the Near Future. That's right. You are experiencing some of these patch notes in our 5.5 snap test that people have been playing the last couple days as we iron out all of the stuff that we broke while building 5.5. Because that always happens. It just does.
Yeah, you're in there, stuff gets, jiggled around.
Every time you pull the engine out, sometimes it...
you forget to put a bolt back in.
There's a bolt that, or you're like, hey! All right, anyways, so we are going to do... This is our reading of the patch notes. You guys are familiar with this, for those of you who have been here before. And we are going to tell you some of the reasoning why we did some of the things. It's not just a reading of the patch notes. It also explains what we were thinking. In some cases, what we weren't thinking. And let's do it.
People don't know what the background is, so you maybe have a contest to see if you can guess.
Ah, yes.
Everyone should know what this background is. I think they won 2 Oscars, in fact, for this movie.
Oscars don't mean anything.
Even though
it's campaigning, it doesn't mean anything.
Sure.
I believe the count is this movie versus Last Jedi 2-0 for Oscars, in fact.
We talked about this. The Lone Ranger got an Oscar for visuals, for visual effects. Their horse looked like it was made of Jello. Like, no movie deserved that less than that movie did.
Yes.
The Oscars don't mean anything.
Okay, so we are here in our baseline test room, and now we're going to read some patch notes.
There you go.
Okay. Keeps will now properly convert their graveyard faction when they switch factions. This was most noticeable if you died in a keep and you return to your beachhead instead of your faction-owned keep. Okay. Bug fixes and adjustment made to the login issue players were having. I have no clue what that means.
Apparently it was an issue.
Apparently it was an issue.
Doesn't occur anymore.
Added new passive Ethereal Sight, which increases Plethora of Dust basic resources by 5% whenever a basic or intermediate tool is equipped. Yeah, I did that yesterday, in fact. It was in response to some of the we need more dust.
Does it increase the chance that the dust won't fall through the ground?
It does, in fact, not, but it's not falling through the ground, actually. So dust is one of our Doober types that there is no actual 3D object in the center. They were just using an effect. And then Mark was pulling those and dumping them back into the object pool. And sometimes they just wouldn't turn back on. In fact, most of the times they wouldn't turn on. So when he pulled it out of the pool to get a new one, it would in fact not turn on, which is why you see a light glow on the ground. It's not actually under the ground. It's still there at that location. So if you were to walk over that location, you would have picked it up. So, yes, people just weren't noticing them though. However, between that new passive that you can get by making a minor discipline, Ethereal Sight, which is under the basic ritual section in your book, you can now get up to 10% with the potion and that for dust from basic stuff. So there you have it. Sometimes the dust does sit on the ground. Yep. Okay. Fix the issue with the powertrain not showing properly on the first login. Yeah, that was pretty frustrating. Fix rubber banding when using powers that set the pushed flag for a short time. Do you know which ones those are?
No, but...
All right.
We'll,
fix an issue where hiding showing the avatar would cause an exception, which resulted in the avatar being a bad state and unable to re-show. That sucked. Teleporting the player when they are bleeding out. I'm going to call it unconscious from now on. How's that?
That sounds good.
We're going to call that unconscious so you don't confuse it with bleeds. Unconscious. And the parcel underneath them is moved, should work properly now. Basically, yeah, we didn't want to leave the character floating into space with no terrain underneath them. Updated the Doober settings to have a larger pop radius so they don't pop on top of the mega nodes. Those are motherlode nodes. I'm just making tweaks here so when we put these up to live, Valerie can make sure they're updated. US. Okay, scale and metal subcomponents which produce crafting stats should now properly produce those stats. That was a fix from when OnRes visited us. Okay, disciplines. You want to go?
Sure. Let's see. Fashion statement now grants 1 additional amulet slot instead of 2.
Yeah, I nerfed the shit out of that one. By 50%, in fact.
High elf racial amulet slot now grants High Elf Racial Amulet Slot Grant now shares the same slot as Amulet Slot granted by Manner Discipline Fashion Statement.
There you go.
Effectively, they don't stack, right?
Right, yeah, because necklaces are too good now to let High Elves get 4 of them with the Fashion Statement. Yeah, so...
and in much the same vein, Ganetian Racial Ring Slot Grant now shares the same slot as Ring Slot granted by Manner Discipline Hand of Glory.
So exact same thing. Everybody can get up to 3 ring slots or 2 necklace slots. Some races get it for free, and others have to use disciplines to get there.
All right.
As with all of our other systems.
Let's see. Campaigns. Handled some exceptions that were happening during the siege lifecycle. Also fixed a bug where the siege flow would break and a siege would not be able to start, which generally stinks.
Yep.
Updating display names on parcels and setting practice dummies and balance beachhead to the balance practice dummies diorama.
Okay.
So that's nice. System vendors should now replace weapon racks in the beachheads, allowing players to collect specific weapons rather than force adding them to the inventory in a big pile
of stuff you don't need.
Yes. So that's a pretty nice improvement as well.
Yep.
Let's see. Effects improve Spider's web spray cast readability, which if you haven't seen it, is done by Spider. Adjusting Doober pickup FX height, fixing height of Ethereal Dust Doober. Skip.
Okay.
Skip. That would be crafting.
The crafting adjective changes?
Let's see. Yes. Crafting station adjective changes. Now all intermediate recipes can be crafted at the general crafting station and their specific station type. For example, intermediate blacksmithing recipes can now be made at the general crafting station and the blacksmithing station 2. So a nice little quality of life improvement.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a mess there, so we just kind of used 5.5 as an opportunity to clean it up.
Cool. Added leather sheet component for intermediate armor recipes. Basic armor recipes have been updated and moved to intermediate armor.
Yep.
Fixed experimentation data and allowing experimentation on the intermediate 2-hand axe. After boarding the crafting timer, you should no longer be prevented from crafting another item, which sounds pretty good. Added a basic bandage craftable item, which can be found in survivalist crafting. 10-second casting time, heals for 2,500, can be used once per minute.
Yep.
And remove test recipe potions. And finally, fixed a bug in crafting where the experimented stat values would randomly bounce around from one experimentation to the next.
Great. So a lot of this is we're shifting out a lot of the testing stuff. So we got rid of all of the test potions. And the last piece of testing crafting stuff in there is disciplines, which will probably move to a vendor in the somewhat near future. And then the book will be kind of pristine. It means if you see something in there, that's what we intend to ship with. So, like yesterday, I added in that first basic discipline that you craft to get the ethereal sight. That should be, I don't intend that to be testing. That should be permanent. I'll probably end up moving, I think Way of the Leader is currently a free passive that everybody gets, as so is Weapon Finesse. I'm going to move those to minors and put them in that section as well, so that I'll either put them there or I'll put them at the intermediate rank, so that there's a nice progression of things to craft in the beginning other than just a weapon and tools. Right, we're trying to give you guys a bunch of stuff to do because, again, we're starting to shift from, hey, let's build a lot of standalone systems and let's start making it play like a game. So, I can do the EK.
Sure.
Introduce thunking sockets system, which should help alleviate problems with socketed building, annex, and attachable, so that they will thunk to the ground and not be floating in the air, unless they put the socket too high, because in testing we had some vendor stalls that were floating at the top of the building. That was pretty funny. Crafting tables now have their own unique socket type and can only be placed inside buildings with a matching socket. Yes. And at some point those sockets are going to get limitations on basically kind of how much power they provide as to what station you can put in there. So we're going to keep expanding on that system. EKs temporarily come with a crypt parcel, which should allow access to vessel changes. Temples within campaigns and EKs no longer support the ability to change vessels. Yes. If you want to change your currently equipped vessel, you have to go to a crypt from now on. Don't look for it at the temple anymore, for those of you who have been playing for a while. And the crypt should be fairly obvious. It's this little cave that you go down into, and it looks all...
Very crypty.
Crypty. Actually, it looks a little happy crypty. They're going to make it more dark and evil crypty here soon. New and improved Wrath map is ready and in play, complete with spider mobs and adventure zones. Specifically, the adventure zone is the canyons that are all snapped together to make Spider Canyon. Crypts have been added to the areas outside of beachheads. Water wells now exist within Wrath, which grant water flasks used in crafting recipes. I didn't see a water well out there, but they should be out there. Go up and after interacting, you'll get some water. Crafting stations have been removed from the beachheads. All basic crafting can now be accessed using the J menu. Yep. So when you're in the beachhead, everything we want you to craft there is accessible via J. Go out to the forts and the keeps to get the intermediate recipes at the stations out there. And then the advanced stuff will also be at some of the stations. Adjusted the NPC ranger range, blackouts, and hit times to match what the animation is doing. Interesting. I didn't know we touched ranger...
this is actually an NPC note, so that's basically saying that...
Oh, okay. These are NPC rangers.
Yeah,
okay.
Basically trying to make them look a little closer to...
Gotcha. Yes. Change NPC ranger range to use all weapon damage and adjust for animation timings. Change the rest of the ranks for the ranger guard spawner. Ranger guards can no longer be moved via chain pull or similar powers. So that is the same animation timing issue, I'm guessing, that the rest of the AI is suffering from?
Yes. So there is an issue right now with the new AI system where the animations and the actual application of the game effects are out of sync. So you'll notice that animations usually animations will appear late, basically.
There you go.
So
and
that is why, for example, like it's been reported on the boards. For example, you'll see the eye flash from the zombie, and if you don't get out of the way in time, you'll see. You'll take a bunch of damage, and then the zombie will swing.
Gotcha.
So that's basically why that is.
So our goal is not to keep it that way.
Right. Obviously,
it's just
we want to fix it.
There's a bug that's happening because we intend for the big red teleattacks to start doing increased damage again.
Very dangerous.
Okay.
Right. So where are we? Where's
General Powers is where I left off.
All right. Let's see.
Thank you, Dave Greco. And there's no E on the end of my name.
Players will log in with a 30-second invulnerability buff. Attacking anyone will cancel the buff early.
There you go. Yeah, that is fully functional now, and it works great. I have not seen it not work properly at all.
All powers that apply bleed should now be properly modified by the bleed dots damage addition statistic. Which
correct.
Right. And my favorite. No, for today, renamed Bleed Dots Damage Addition to Bleed Dot Damage Multiplier, sorry, since it is actually multiplying on the base amount. Blair!
There you go. So, this is the... you guys are already feeling this on live, because I pushed this one forward a couple weeks ago, which was the champion bleed damage being out of control. Same with the Ranger's bleed damage. It is now back in control, and you get a much smaller amount. However, I also used that chance to add it to a bunch of bleeds that didn't have it. So a bunch of bleeds are now getting buffed by this stat that weren't before.
That's good.
So good thing that broke, so that way I could see the other things that were broken in there.
Let's see. Ground targeted abilities will no longer automatically sync to the ground and will act as expected when aimed at areas such as the top of ramparts, catwalks, or in buildings. So that's a good improvement. I believe there is still an issue where the reticle itself may not draw on certain objects. But no, if you're on top of something, if your cursor is there, it will deploy the effect on whatever it is you're pointing at.
Okay.
Right? But the actual reticle itself may still be appearing under it, but it actually should be deploying at the proper spot. That's something we're going to fix. So.
Which bleeds weren't getting buffed before? Most bleeds weren't getting buffed before. Okay.
So, remove the resource costs from Wild Charge, Gestalt, Headbutt, Fairy Fire, Saltpeter Rounds, Backhand, Humiliate, and Call Flames. Basically, most of the
racials.
Activated racials. And a lot of that had to do with just the way we're trying to basically make things work for pip users, which sometimes just doesn't work as well.
Oh, so, the pip users.
Yeah, we love them. And because we love them, we did this. Fix an issue preventing movement after breaking out from a knockdown after being dizzied. More specifically, I believe this was about recovering from, specifically recovering from dizzy down.
With retaliate.
With retaliate. So
right.
that will work as you expect it now.
Great.
Class stuff. Assassin retaliate now causes damage and grants pip when targets are not exposed. General bug fix.
Yep.
Let's see. Removed relevant mention of cooldown resetting from retaliate since it's no longer cooldown gated. We need to probably add what class that's for. Assassin kidney shot will now only stun Minotaurs from the back, so they get their racial bonus, even if they're getting stunned by an assassin. Added the short cooldown to assassin backstab.
Yes, we're still tweaking with that one.
Yeah, we might look that again.
It was, but it definitely 3 backstabs in a row on every stun was a little too much.
Added the screen shake to diffusion when used with a toxin, so that should feel a little more impactful. Assassins will no longer attempt to infect rocks, trees, and dead animal corpses with their toxins. Let's see. Champion.
The 3rd basic attack while an ultimate warrior should properly find a target now. Yeah, that one had a weird checkbox set that was, yeah.
Disciplines. Mole Hunter heads up. See invisibility should work properly now.
Okay.
Scarecrow Aura of Terror should take into account perception stat. Glass Cannon can now be loaded out into stealth trays. And Naiad Water Spirits can now be cast while moving. Apparently lasts forever.
And, and is generating
in other news,
hundreds of thousands of errors on the server that will hopefully be fixed today. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess rounding out page 7, which is really page 3 in dog years.
Yes, fix the bounds of the personal bank UI widget as well as the World Bank Selector UI, which have the same issue. Added outlines around the targeting icon for critical harvest. Okay. Marble nodes should no longer erroneously yield granite while harvesting. That was a typo in the loot data. That was like, hey, why are you getting granite from these guys? And crows should be able to use teleporters now in case they get into a location that they need to get back to their body.
We have those.
Okay. Right. So those are the patch notes. Mark didn't want to read all of the other ones that we've already read last time, which is valid. So we're going to go into questions, and we will see what you have to say. Okay. Jack, we are going to scroll back.
Scrolling back.
Scrolling. Okay. Halash sounds fine, so this is the noise issues.
Halash sounds fine. Thank you. Halash sounds fine. What? Blair said a curse word.
Blazin. They must have stopped PvPing. The message ping has gone down. Thank you for your sarcasm. That is very helpful, Blazin, as always. The Last Jedi sucked. I agree. Damn it! It keeps scrolling to the bottom.
They're posting a ton of questions at the bottom.
Okay.
Everything that got posted up there.
Jack didn't bring a mouse in this week, so I'm using this touchpad, which really sucks.
I have a mouse for my computer because I was prepared when I brought my laptop in here.
Yes.
Like you didn't bring your homework, Blair.
Yeah. Okay. So I will do it this way and just hold this button down. Okay. Yes, somebody had a question about what this was. This is clearly the 5.5 patch notes. We're currently doing snap tests. We did one yesterday. We did one Friday. Basically, it allows us to get the biggest problem that we can fix in a day, because a day isn't a lot of time for us to generally fix something. We try and get the blockers, things that we consider blocking for everybody, so that it will get to a point where we can put it up on live pretty quick. Thank when somebody says, good job on the adventure zones. They're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't hear a lot of positive. We get a lot of Blazin saying mean sarcastic things to us. So Please. Reinforce with some positives in there as well.
Poison in particular.
Yep.
Lots of people worked hard.
Yep, lots of people worked hard and they like to hear the positive things. All right. Why not make an added table on the rank 1 with more dust? The dust in most combines... This mouse really sucks.
If you scroll all the way down, they're reposting questions.
Okay. I want to get Strathros because I was halfway through it. The dust in most combines is another PCM tax. Yes, so we'd always intended to put the dust in there because it's the basically it's the currency that the harvesters are gathering that they will eventually sell along with the resource. It's just another resource type. And you're going to start seeing it. You don't see it on any of the basic recipes. You only see dust on intermediate and higher. And there is a reason for that. Okay. What is the cause of the combat lag? We had it last night test. We are still looking at it. Our server graphs look good. We had done a whole lot of server improvements in the 5.5 cycle. So engineering is putting their heads together to figure out what's causing those spikes. Are bandages going to be locked to the basic survival training to make and or use currently free? The goal with bandages is to give people something that they can heal with while they're doing the adventure areas. It was painful when we were out there doing it in our version of the 5.5 testing, so I implemented the bandage stuff. The goal is there will be better bandages in the survival unlocks in basic exploration, and the basic ones might come down a little bit to make some more room in there for better ones. But yes, survivalist will be getting bandages. The High Elf Bloodline does not say what percentage the dodge clearcast is. Is it still 25%?
That I don't know without looking at it, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was one of a million
stats. I made that power 3-4 months ago, so... can you explain why dust was added to so many crafting recipes? Yes, because it was always intended to be there. We just hadn't added it in, and it was in the phase of testing we were in, we weren't ready to add it in there. Now that we're shifting from, again, like I say, from that pure testing mode to, hey, let's make a game out of this, we're now starting to add in a lot of these elements. What is the status of the Centaur rear kick working again? There's clearly a ticket in there, I remember seeing it. Basically, it's any combo that we are prompting from a non-power combo. That's what we call a tag-based combo, and it is mechanically, that's how it's implemented. Those broke at some point. I can't remember what else was a tag-based combo.
Retaliate.
Huh.
But that was given its own system.
Yeah, actually Akshay went in there and did a bunch of hard coding for that. It wouldn't surprise me. Water wells are in work. Confirmed. Great. Will the crypt be on the same parcel as the shrine? Eventually you will be able to craft your own crypts and put it where you want to, and it will not be linked to the temple. It will be its own parcel. Are you aware of the problem with resurrect on steep slopes? I am not. I'm guessing because it's a ground targeting reticle.
Maybe, but I mean it shouldn't matter. But what is the problem?
We definitely would like to know about that. Yeah. We need more positional powers. Yep. As we add those things, we will do. No cobblestone staring rock is white and reticle is white, so I can't see it to move to the crit spot. Yes, the highlight shader on anything white is way too bright. I know Melissa was going to reduce that by a whole bunch. With a cooldown on backstab, the ability from Black Mass that makes all attacks hit from the back for 10 seconds becomes pretty useless. Will you consider changing this? As we adjust backstab, we will definitely tweak anything that's related to it, like Black Mask. Since the crypt parcel is a 1/4 the size old format cell, unless you place it on the perimeter of your EK landmass, you'll end up with an L-shaped gap. Can we get some other 1/4 parcels so we can fill these holes, or some other way to address this? Yes. We will ask the parcel guys to make us a parcel that lets you fill out that gap. Damage and conditions numbers text clutter the screen, making it especially hard for healers range to see their targets as well as what's going on. Will you address this issue offsetting text numbers? Yes. We have been waiting for the fly text upgrade for
A while.
a year and a half now. That ticket's been in. Billy went in and did all of the work converting into tweens. Right now, our fly text is incredibly expensive on the client, too, because it's using animators. So we built this tween system for a lot of our stuff. We just haven't had the time to go over and convert that. We're waiting on an engineer to free up. And the new fly text has little... It goes out in arcs. It's not just the straight up and down. It's more legible. Yeah. And it's way more performant. We just need to get it implemented. Yes. Do the water wells ever run out of water? We found some last night. We were able to pull 40 flasks in them just in a minute or so. Sounds like the respawn timer is still on its testing values. I'll talk to Valerie about that. Because they're not supposed to be respawning such that you get 40 in a minute.
That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. Can you make carbon stack by 100 instead of 20? It's crazy how much space it requires to feed the guild. Yes. Jack, would you write that down for me? Because my writing hand is... Scrolling. Yes. No more 5k bleeds. In fact, there are no more 5k bleeds. Can people cap a fort while in vuln login? We didn't specifically deny it, but the amount of time it takes you to camp and get back into that, you should be vulnerable there at the end and you will get smashed. I have a feeling. At least I hope it works that way. Gate effects don't work at the tree level of the keep. Or, ground targeted AE.
Oh, okay.
You know, our minds just see the first letter, the last letter, and we interpolate what's in between. So, using an acronym instead of gate.
Pop sci.
Yep. So, I'm guessing there's something else going on there?
It's the same
we'll have to...
Seeing, I think.
Yeah, but you know what? Mark did something, and I remember you commenting on it.
So there was a long-standing problem where soft targets would get eaten by destructible objects that were parented to... It was like this complicated thing, and it basically meant that certain types of targeting were being eaten if they happened nearby keeps, and so that should be fixed.
Yeah, that should be in 5.5.
So that might fix this, or if it doesn't, let us know, because it could be the same. Could be the same issue.
Okay.
So we'll have to look at that. Actually, make a note of that, Jack. The targeting things near the tree. Where'd you say near the top of the?
Yeah, the fort keep by the tree.
It may actually be doing something similar. But on the upside, and I didn't see these on the patch notes, but it means that if you ever noticed that you couldn't hit things near, for example, the entrance of certain keep areas where the guards were, or whatever, this fixes that.
So it should be far more pleasant to fight.
You should be able to fight, is what it means.
Okay. We can see when an opponent has a barrier up, a white line around their health. Can we get the same for our own health bars or group members' health bars so we know when the barrier's up? Yes, we should. When Billy gets back into the combat HUD, we should definitely clean up a lot of that stuff, because we haven't touched the combat HUD in over a year now. What's with the drifting sideways going up and down hills? Yes, we've noticed that as well, and we're waiting for engineering to fix that one, because it's
disconcerting.
It didn't cause anything to break, so we didn't gate the build on it, but it is definitely...
That is weird. It's like...
It's like, hey!
Am I tilting?
Will gold continue to just drop from monsters? The idea with gold... There's something about minting it in there. I don't know with the rate that we have it in the world if it would be too much coming from ours. We'd have to look at it. But the goal is eventually that the gold moves from the critters to the NPCs, only like the zombies. We just don't have enough critters and NPCs in the map right now to start splitting up all the loot tables. So basically the loot tables will change again when we have a bigger spread. I've seen some cooler NPCs in progress, specifically on your desk. So I know we're getting more in the next update. Not 5.5, 5.6.
More where that's coming from.
Playing a druid in a fort keep is very frustrating due to the ground target AE effect. So hopefully that has been updated with what Mark and I just talked about. We've seen these once because I keep scrolling. Come on, I left positive feedback on the death mechanic in Adventure Zones. You must have glazed over it. Actually, believe it or not, I've noticed, and this is just like over my career, back in the day, the forums were basically the only place where the players would come to talk, right? There was some off forums like Monthly Business and the Safe House where specific classes would break off, but generally on the forums, you saw everything. So you saw a mix of positive and negative. And then now as Discord and other voice comms are the standard. I think Onraz, when we were talking to him last week, said he sits in 4 different Discord channels. A lot of the positive stuff people will say is comments, and the developers aren't privy to any of those channels. So a lot of the changes that you guys like that we see, we never hear about because you're talking about them when you're in your voice comms, which is what people are going to do. So they only come to the forums for when things are broken or they have complaints. So unfortunately for us, it ends up being it's a giant wall of negativity, and we never get to see the, hey, you guys did this right, hey, you did that right, because that's very few and far between, and you guys are talking about that to each other. So
I did specifically call out, actually to you, about the positive, because we did get there was positive feedback on the thread, for example. And I noted, hey, there's as much positive.
Right. So when we see it, we're like, hey, look, somebody said something good.
There's positive feedback.
So yeah, it's always, as much as you guys are adding, this thing is broken in those feedback threads, please start adding what you do like, because that basically
informs us what you like.
It basically gives us a way to guide towards, oh, if they like these 3 things, this type of thing that we're doing is fairly positive, so we can continue to add those things. Otherwise, we're just going to keep adding things that we like. Okay, so back to the questions. Why is it that PvP causes massive lag, but combat against creatures doesn't? We don't know. Engineering is looking at it, but that is a very good hint for them to have. Frostweaver ETA. Frostweaver is not in production yet, so she's going to be a while. Can the Templar Leap be changed where the stun lands at the point that they land? It would be nice to use environmental objects such as rocks to increase the range on your stun leap.
Yeah, so there's still some pieces missing that we had before, but then lost, and then got back and then lost again. With that, specifically, like for example, with the leaps and the charges and all that, you still squirt right past them. We want to basically make it so once you hit a valid target, a valid enemy target, it will stop, and then it will be easier for you to use that actually as a stun.
Good to see you. Excuse me.
See you later, Blair.
Goodbye, Blair. Bye forever.
Oh
yeah. So still some work that needs to be done with both leap and pollen season here in Texas.
Yes, the pollen is in effect.
Now the cedar's gone. It's pollen time.
Yep.
And after that, it'll be more pollen. So short answer to your question, still more work needed to be done on the general physics of things like leap and charge and whatnot, because we're still not happy with it yet.
Yeah. Even though I did see something Andy was doing with the champion leap so that it would hit and fall.
Yeah, so work is being done.
Okay, so did jewelry stats get buffed in 5.5? Yes. Jewelry stats got buffed a lot, and necklaces were added. Make sure you go out there and get some Chaos Embers, I believe, is the new component required for necklaces. Please tell me whoever did the new sounds for Gaia's Whale and the Druid Orb detonation, they did a great job. Yes, we have a new sound contractor, and he has been going through everything and adding new sounds. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, the pollen is
Polleny.
It's polleny. Woo. Delay on targeting harvesting weak spot feels bad. It is set by where the pick animation starts instead of where the animation ends. I'm still on the fence on the whole, and I know you're not, which is holding left click down to harvest. Mark just wants to kill that, and I can see the point on that as well. And we probably should do a test cycle where we disable the ability to hold the left click down so that it's less like an auto attack and more like you have to click. Basically, it's more emulating an action game at that point.
Right.
Because in an action game, you have to press the buttons rather than hold the buttons down, usually. Okay. In case you missed it, death in 5.5 resulted in a vessel being deleted, not by me. Random deletion. That is awful.
Pretty bad.
That sounds very awful. Please put a post up so somebody can try and repro that. In 5.5, it feels like Hungerdom physics are back. I got chain pulled off the keep by someone on the same level and flew almost 50 meters past them.
Yikes.
I don't know if that's intentional, Durenthal. I think there is a pill separation bug that's going on. It happens to me in my test map.
Yeah.
I walk over an area and all of a sudden I get warped. So that could be two different things. If I create a vendor NPC, can I sell that vendor NPC to someone who does not have training that they can use it anytime? I don't know yet. We haven't put any rules on who can use vendors right now. You can totally just
buy one and use it.
Just buy one and use it with no skills. Can you address the concern that the corpse run mechanic will mean that the attackers during a siege can't re-rally and continue the siege if they are wiped once? Going back to a battlefield would mean getting corpse camped by the defenders, unless they all tow truck.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your intent for siege attackers to be in such a precarious position?
Well, I mean, resurrection, right? I mean, that's part of the reason we
yeah,
have the ability to resurrect.
There's a whole lot of... I guess if you armchair design that one, there's a whole lot of kind of corners you can back yourself into. We thought we put in enough tools with the resurrects and the tow truck to kind of work your way around some of those problems.
I mean, we want right now it's a little easier because there's not that much sting and death. There's a time penalty, but there should be, like, you shouldn't want to not die. You should want to stay alive, right? I mean, honestly, right? A lot of games, you know, if you're playing a first-person shooter or whatever, you just die and respawn and die and respawn and die and respawn.
Right.
You know, we want that to have a little more sting with our game, to where you don't want to die. It's a big, you don't want to, you know, because it basically means you might lose.
Yeah.
Right. There's real risk. So, you know, but you hope. I mean, if resurrect's not enough, you know, there's games we can play with the cooldowns if we think we want you to be able to come back more quickly or whatever.
But if the attacking team suffers a full-on wipe,
yeah,
like,
I guess they lost.
yeah, I mean,
you know.
the defense is weighted in the for the defenders, right? The entire siege is weighted in favor of the defenders. So if they were able to wipe you, I don't know that they're going to corpse camp you, as they're going to go knock down the bane trees and end the siege as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So again, that's why I called that a bit of armchair designing, because you can paint yourself into whatever corner you want to.
Right. But
more than likely, what they're going to want to do is end the siege, because then their buildings are no longer at risk. Right. Why is behead locked behind an advanced rune tool while res is not? Because we wanted to do it that way, and this way, the rune tool guys will always have a use for axes. So that's +1 to the rune crafters market. Please remove boars from beachheads. We actually need a newbie creature out there. In fact, the boars of the beachheads
aggro anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So that was something else that I fixed.
But we need some level 1 leather out there. So by the time that you move from the beachhead to the forts or keeps, you can craft your intermediate armor. So that's one of the reasons that they're there, is because you need leather from them. It's no longer stone and ore to make that first set of armor.
Every Tuesday during the live stream, I get a telemarketing call.
Really?
Yep.
You should answer it.
I should actually answer it on stream.
Next week, you should just be like, "Hello, you're on stream."
You're on stream. It'll be a robocall telling me that my insurance, my car insurance is or car warranty. That's it.
Oh, I hate those.
Yeah, your car warranty is expired, dude. You know, come on, my car is 10 years old.
Can you elaborate on the?
It's been expired for much longer than that.
Yeah. Anyways, can you elaborate on the skill tree updates coming soon patch note? That was kind of vague. No, because that's coming in a future update. But it is cool and exciting. Retrieving on the altar means your inventory is gone, bugger intended. That is correct. So if you tow truck back at the altar, all of the stuff that was lootable is back on your cairn that's out there. You can run back out there and get it if you want to, but that's where it is. So it is intended. Your equipped stuff right now is not left on the cairn. And that's going to be tuned by basically the rules of looting for that campaign, and that is to prevent people from tow trucking to beat people grabbing their lootable stuff. Test just crashed. Hopefully we're...
He didn't crash. He took it down on purpose.
Okay, he took it down on purpose.
It's coming back up.
Crashed by design. No.
Oh, okay. He's probably going to bring it up with Wireshark on it or whatever. Okay. Any chance you're considering reworking the issue of stacking range modifiers, allowing Elkins to have 85 meters? Yeah, again, we're going to tune those numbers if we find it too far. Ultimately, we have the stat caps on there protecting us from it getting too crazy. But we also don't have a single path to getting to a max value. One of our philosophies is there's multiple ways to do things. That way you're not stuck min-maxing in a very specific way.
Right. It's
right.
Like, well, if you want to be an ranger, you got to be an Elkin.
Right.
You know.
So if you want to find a different way to get something, then we've put that in. So if you don't want to use Hand of Glory, you can play a Ganetian, and you get 3 ring slots. There's 2 different ways to get there. So it gives you always options. Options, options, options. Gordon controls all of letting people into the tests. I don't know how many people he's going to want to let into test before we bring it to live. Now that we're starting to run it like an actual test server, where we have vendors that have all of the resources there, so you can craft. The downside to playing on test is you get oftentimes the nastiest bugs that can be seen.
You're literally jumping into the meat grinder potentially, but
Yeah.
but it helps us a lot.
Yeah.
because this is where the biggest nails get. Oh, we gotta get rid of that. Sand that down before we go to a larger audience. But.
Yep. New death mechanic is exactly what we needed. Can't run back to fights as easy. Can't release and respawn. Yeah, that's why we looked at redoing it. When will we be allowed to have others use our crafting tables in our EK? Has that been asked? It has been asked. It was clearly on the ask list. I don't think we got it in 5.5, but part of the vassal system will have that, and that's coming fairly soon. So then you will be able to let people use basically all of your buildings in your EK and potentially pick them up and do all those things. I thought the minor disc that adds support power for non-healer classes would be in 5.5, but I don't see it.
Yeah,
yes.
Check and make sure that the magic checkbox.
No, it's there.
Is it there? Okay.
I put it on the Spider Queen.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Kill the Spider Queen.
Go kill the Spider Queen arcade if you want to get a chance to get that minor discipline.
Start camping. No, you shouldn't have to camp.
Um.
In fact, we'll probably respawn before you're done with. I'm kidding. No. Spawn time should be okay.
Okay. Any chance that Spirit Crows will go faster? Yeah, you know what? I need to make the Spirit Crow move a little quicker. And what race should get to move faster with their Spirit Crow? Or should we make that a training box? Skill node.
That sounds kind of like that's probably something everybody wants, right? Or you could do both.
Ah.
Do everything. Do it all.
Maybe the spirit could go a little higher. Too.
We need to rework the entire movement model of the crow, because it's just that was what we put in, and it clearly needs to feel way better.
Reminds me of Jump, a certain game that I worked on once.
We killed the Spider Queen already. Yes, it is a loot table, so there is a % chance to get the things. In fact, I think I put 2 other. There's like 3 disciplines it can drop. Eventually, we're going to start. We will, near the end, all of the disciplines will be out of the book, and they will go in their various ways. You will, the majors and the weapon ones. You already know how a weapon one is made. The majors will migrate to the capturing thrall mechanic in the world, and all of the minors will come from probably these little bosses that we're putting in the world. Centaurs need faster in combat and out of combat movement. Please add Trailord as a centaur only run buff. When we put mounts in, yes, the centaurs will get their fast movement when they're mounted, just like everybody else. They're just not going to be riding.
They'll be riding themselves.
They'll be riding themselves. They won't. Yes, there's always an edge
centaur
case.
riding another centaur.
Race affecting the crow makes no sense. You're not invested while you're in crow. Good point. So then we'll put it in the skill tree. How's that sound? Make your crow move faster, and that will probably go in the exploration. Yes, exploration sounds good. Okay, keep up the great work, you guys. Thank you, Jack Noel 04. Camping Commander and Traveler, yes. Oh, yes. I still love the stories of Commander being one guild keeping Commander spawn on lockdown for months to prevent other guilds from sieging because you needed Commander to siege. The corner tower and forts cannot be entered. This used to be possible, became broken around 5.3. It does work if the pointed roof of the tower has been removed or if said towers and then beachhead. Has this been fixed? I am not sure. That sounds like an art bug.
Yeah, sounds
There are like invisible colliders. So like, you know, you go up to the corner tower, you just stop when you try to get under.
Sounds like we know about it.
Is there a ticket on that?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. If there's not, I'll double check it.
Yeah, what we do is once you guys alert it to us, we put in a JIRA entry and it goes to the appropriate party. And based on its priority, it may or may not get looked at because we have a lot of high priority stuff. Any news on Fae release date? Yes, Fae will be releasing soon.
Love it.
Love it. Yes, we are waiting on 2 key pieces of tech for the Fae. Care to comment on mount ideas? Yes, I do care to comment on it. It will be awesome. And coming to you probably soon as well.
In fact, the Fae will be riding a mount when. No, I'm kidding.
I
don't know that.
The Fae will come in riding a mount at the city. Yeah, that would be fantastic. On death, there's a crow spawn problem. Sometimes get locked out of resing. We know there's a couple death issues. I think we found another one this morning as well. We're going to try and kick those over to Mark before he goes on spring break, because it is the spring break season. Yeah, between Christmas and spring break, you always lose some engineers. Any news on Frostweavers? Yes. Designing. Yep, designing. Because, again, the hold on the Frostweaver has kind of been a play on my part to make sure we have some engineering free to get us a couple new tech pieces. I didn't want to make a ice version of the Confessor because that would be kind of boring. I wanted some fun, new, exciting things. Unfortunately, to do that, I need a couple pieces of tech, and we're building a lot of other gameplay systems right now. So I've been kind of holding that one in my pocket, waiting for the time when I could get those engineering features. Yes, the accelerated training is back on. And a druid can remove a Naiad healing orb via blight.
Cool.
They shouldn't be able to because it should ignore...
Yeah, I'll have to look at it.
The Naiad orb doesn't have the same... I think it's a tag. There's a tag that's on the life orbs.
Halash, I'm sending this to you anyway.
Okay. Very well.
Any word on changing armor penetration at higher guild skill levels? Yes. In fact, you talked to Charlie about that, so why don't you...
Oh, yeah, so the whole... armor penetration and armor are meant to be opposing stats. So right now what's happening, though, is the cap is being applied first, and then armor penetration is coming in, and it will knock it down to whatever, right? The intention is you can have... you could actually have effectively 90% armor, even though it's capping at 75. Somebody can come in with 20% armor penetration, and you have 70% armor. That's the intention. It's not doing that, but it will be doing that for 5.6. We're not sure. We didn't think we'd be able to get it in for 5.5, so maybe a 5.6 thing. But that's the intention for how that's going.
So in the future, it will always benefit you to go as much above the cap on armor mitigation as possible, because that will fight against the end penetration number, which will make it a different stat than our other stats, because it won't have basically that hard capping that we do with everything else. Well, it will still hard cap, but in a sense that you only get 75% max. The Doober changing, yeah, so Borland snuck that in at the end there. Because we needed the Doober for when the head pops off when you death blow somebody. But since no one's death blowed anybody, they haven't seen the final... somebody put up a fun video for it. Actually, Gibson, did you do that as part of Fight 5?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's seen it, though.
Okay.
But see it.
When the head pops off when you death blow somebody, you get a Doober of their skull, and then you get to keep the items, and it'll say, like, Skull of Srathor, for example. To get that in, Borland resurrected an old ticket that I'd put in, which was, let's get Doobers more... they're not physical objects like they were using the physics system. They're now locations and effects, but the effect to the player is the same. However, they're way cheaper on the server, and we can make the client look prettier when it bounces out, and it won't suffer from any type of overloading to the physics system that's going on at the time. So it's great. So you guys should see benefits from that. Oh, also, when he talked about the contribution rules, because just like we had to add contribution rules for groups for killing creatures who can actually skin it and who gets XP credit, we use that same system for the Doobers, whereas if Mark and I are grouped and he harvests and I don't do anything, I still see the Doober, but Jack, who likes to steal things, doesn't see the Doobers at all. The only way for him to get our Doobers is to kill us in combat.
Oh, darn.
So, there you go. Can you slot that skull into a wall on your EK? Not yet. I need to make some crafting recipes so that you can mount with wood and heads. You can make a head on
head on your wall.
Stoneboard update. I have seen a lot of good art over the last 2 weeks, so the Stoneborn is being built.
Coming soon.
Are you going to limit Doobers to visible and pick up by group? Yes, that's already done, Tennis. Can we wear someone's skull as a hat?
Oh, skull hats. No, but that's a good idea. You can do Bone Dude.
Seems like a lot is moving away from more and more physics, value, and effort to try and use it, but thank God you moved away from it. So Zach did... the Doobers being placed on the physics system was just because we wanted to get it in at the time, and that was what we had the time for. And now that we're getting more into let's try and optimize as much as possible, things like that don't need to be using.
Don't have to be.
Right? So clearly we want to pull as much out because that leaves more room for combat and other things to happen on there. And things like Doobers, which happen all the time because people are constantly harvesting, it just doesn't need to be putting a physics load on us. Damage inflation question. Do you agree we saw significant damage inflation with the accelerated training? Any plans to compensate healing? Right now, we're not adding any more healing. We'll see how it plays out. And the extra, even though you guys see 500 attack power, that converts into 50 basically weapon damage, which was another 30% on top of weapons, isn't breaking the bank as far as we're concerned. So there you go. There are a lot of things that came online in the last month, and it wasn't just attack power on weapons.
There's a lot of different systems working finally.
Right.
Right.
And the advanced skill training, and there were some bugs in the advanced skill training.
Yep.
And there was 2 other things that I mentioned in our internal emails on the subject that are coming into play in 5.5, and I can't remember exactly what they were. Oh, jewelry.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
the increased stats on jewelry, and I added some exotic stats on the necklaces specifically that are going to bump things just a little bit more. And then there was one other aspect, I can't remember what that is. Shields got way better for the mitigation side of the house. And then when we get in the armored penetration changes, that will also affect things in the other direction.
Right.
Meaning over-armored people will feel more over-armored than they currently do. And basically, to sum it all up, I want to get all of the pieces on the board before we start making knee-jerk reactions, right? Because then you end up with legacy things like, why did we nerf or buff healing to this degree?
It's like, why? And next thing you know, because once everything's online, we don't want to be like, well, now healing's way too good, and then we have to try to pull that back, and you guys
What's
get
funny
very,
is
very angry at us.
that also becomes like one of those cohort moments where people of that cohort remember when healing used to be good. Yeah, so we don't want to create any of those. We want to get all of the pieces into play, and then we can look and see which ones. Like the armor penetration was a great one because we didn't realize that was what was happening, and we're like, you know what, we need to change that. So we want to get everything out there. We'll look to see where the high nails are, and then we'll start getting it into final balance. But thank you for continuing to play as those things come online, because we can see where the things that we're implementing are broken. Okay.
You were at 10 after, just as...
Okay, so we have a couple... the hunger tick rate is just too fast. It's possible to lose 7 chicken tickers in a single group fight. That may be a little high. However, we do have a bunch of things to counter that. And if we need more, we can add more. Be it bigger food, because I know everyone's using apples rather than briskets, and a brisket is 3x as good as an apple, if I'm not mistaken. So more food. Eventually, if we get crops online, that will help the food problems. I know centaurs can get an enhanced stomach in their vessel crafting. Thank you, Mr. Halash, on that one. So we have a lot of answers to those things. Hopefully you guys will start to see them. And if we need to add a couple more in the skill trees to reduce the rate of food tick, we will also look at that as well. Cleric ultimate power not charging with healing by design or bug.
Bug, if you're healing, if you're trying to heal, it should charge if you're healing others. If you're healing yourself, no.
Okay.
If you're healing others, then yes.
So healing other players will get you supercharged.
Healing dummies, no.
No, yeah,
Don't expect that to stay.
By the way, we're clearing out a bunch of those ones that are silly, like, or if there was catapults in there, I'm sure on catapults it would also work, but it's not intended to work. We will.
So don't get used to it.
Yeah. Why can't we see food values in game tooltips? Because I didn't go and add them in. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to dynamically pull the item tooltip text from the stat of the power that it triggers. I have to manually do that, and that's just on my list. I was waiting to come up with the values that I was happy with. I may do that sometime soon. Enhanced stomach equal cow body centaurs. Please give me the option to make a cow centaur body. The leftover bits.
This is a good one.
Which one? Okay. Yeah. I don't know that minotaurs get the enhanced stomach.
In fact, this should probably... Oh, go on. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and that'll tweak. You guys, once you start vessel crafting, will come up with some, hopefully, problems with any things that we left out there or cool things to add. Next question. You added glass cannon to the stealth tray, but there were a lot of other combat miners which should be slotted there. Sturdy uniform leather, plans to add them.
Yeah, so basically, as far as, well, I guess it's stealth tray, I suppose I was thinking harvesting tray. But, so I just fixed a bug, and I don't believe, I didn't saw it on these patch notes, but just fixed a bug basically that prevented a lot of things from working in the harvesting and stealth trays. So you should find that improved with 5.
Okay. There you go. And there was one more question I wanted to do. It was Cleric 10 wounds make 100% uptime on soul charge trivial. I'm sure Mr. Halash can look at that and see why that is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting... Basically, you should only be getting supercharge if you're healing a target that needs to be healed.
Okay.
So if it's not working that way, it will.
Will leadership passive slot into the stealth tray? Yes. I went and reworked the entire way of the leader passive, so it's way more reliable now in 5.5. So I would recommend that someone in your group uses it, trains those skills as a group leader, and give feedback on if it's working or where it's breaking. But yeah, I put a bunch of effort into reworking the way that entire thing works, so it should work way better, and I don't know why it's not in the patch notes. I'll have to get on Valor for that. Okay. We have no more questions.
All right.
Excuse me. All right, the last one, the bug which allows you to see enemy druid orbs is back in 5.5. Has that been fixed? I don't think so. Jack can look at making sure there's a ticket on that one.
Yep.
And thanks for coming out, everybody, for our patch notes from the near future. We will see you next week on usually our Q&A demo fun. I don't have a good name for what next week is.
The doing stuff.
The doing stuff live stream.
Stuff and making things and showing stuff.
Making things, doing stuff, showing things. Yeah, maybe we'll show some 5.5 stuff. Hopefully the pollen won't be so bad. And we will see you all next week. Thanks for coming out.
See you guys.